Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to talk about a movie we haven't spoken about in quite a bit, and that's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Now, this movie has been in the news, every now and then, and is usually never in a good way. And normally it's tied to whether or not Amber Heard is actually going to be prominently in the movie or not, because there was rumors that she was going to be removed, because of the whole thing that happened with Johnny Depp. But I did read a tweet from the Quartering that apparently from people who have seen this movie, they're saying that Amber Heard is definitely in this film without a doubt. So for those of you who were looking forward to her being pretty much removed from this film, that's not going to happen. But that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about the fact that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is actually tracking to do worse than the Marvels. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, every single time we say it can't get worse than this, guess what? It does. It almost always does. It's crazy, and I know, like I always say it, but man, I am proven wrong every single time. So let's get into this article, guys, from Bounding Into Comics. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button, man. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into the YouTube algorithm. So the headline reads: Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom reportedly on track for worse box office opening than the Marvels. DC sequel predicted to pull in just $40 million domestically across the Christmas weekend. Now, even for DC, okay, because I know DC has notoriously pretty bad performing movies, aside from your Batman here and there and now the Joker, but DC has really bad performing movies. But even for DC, this is really, really bad. To do worse than the Marvels, which did worse than The Flash, the Marvels is not a movie that you want to be in company with. Let's just put it that way. So it says, pack it up, Mr. Curry. This round belongs to Black Manta. It looks like the end of the Snyderverse will come with not a bang, but an ocean-muted whisper, as according to a new report, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is on track for a very, very unhappy Christmas. Per a December 19th analysis of the upcoming holidays box office prospects provided by Deadline's Anthony D'Alessandro and Nancy Taglione, I don't know how to say that last name, the final chapter in DC's first attempt at a cinematic universe is currently looking at a domestic box office of just $40 million across the entirety of its debut 4-day weekend. And unfortunately for the Aquaman, who would be king, his financial outlook barely looks better overseas. Now, wow, that is insane, considering that it is Christmas weekend, right? This is a time where people are going to be spending money with their families and enjoying themselves on their holiday break. So $40 million domestically, that's it. That's going to be pretty bad, man. I am not surprised, though, because this movie has been in development hell for the most part. It has gone through so many different forms of reshoots, so many different issues, and now with Amber Heard apparently being prominent in the film when she was supposedly wasn't going to be, there was so many rumors regarding this film during the Johnny Depp trial, and now that this film is actually coming out, nobody cares about it. Nobody cares that this film is coming out. There's not a single person that I know of that I speak to, either personally or on YouTube or whatever, that is actively looking forward to Aquaman, unless it's a female who just wants to see Jason Momoa. That's the only reason why anybody would actively want to see Aquaman. So let's talk about the overseas numbers. So it says launching in 73 markets, including the highly coveted China, the James Wan directed sequel is only set to take in somewhere between 75 to 80 million, with a possible peak of 110 million through Sunday. Assuming these figures end up accurately representing Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom's opening box office, they would represent an abysmal performance decline between the sequel and its predecessor. Releasing on December 21st, per numbers provided by aptly named box office analysis outlet The Numbers, the first Aquaman ended its 4 days in theaters, the same amount of time covered in D'Alessandro and Tattaglione's analysis, with a nearly triple-sized take of $105 million. Likewise, the film ended its international opening weekend, which only covered a standard 3-day period, with roughly 172 million, an almost 50% box office increase over even the most generous of Lost Kingdom's predictions. Now, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, most sequels don't do as well as the predecessor. That's not something specific to Aquaman. That's just a known fact, okay? Most sequels don't do as good as the predecessor, but some sequels end up getting really close if they're damn good and the word of mouth is there, or if the care factor is there. And in this particular scenario, it's not there. People just don't care about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. People really don't care about this movie to the point where they need to go see it right away. They would probably wait for for streaming before they watch this movie. So I don't really think this is going to be a must-see in the theaters, and that's what's ultimately going to affect this movie's box office performance. It's not releasing in the same manner as the first one got released, right? Like, streaming is a lot more prominent now and is a lot more sought after, so people are going to just probably wait for this movie to show up on streaming. It says, to this end, according to a previous report from Variety, the Deep Sea sequel reportedly cost a whopping $215 million to produce. Taking into account the standard rule of thumb, thanks to production and subsequent marketing costs, a given film must make at least double its budget to break even. This means that Lost Kingdom needs to make its theatrical run with at least an absolute minimum final box office of $500 million, ladies and gentlemen. Now, do you really think that this film is going to do $500 million? I don't think so. If it gets carried by the international market, I would be very surprised. If it does anything remotely decent in the domestic box office past 100 some odd million, I would be very surprised. It's not going to do it. It just can't. It's not that kind of film. These movies cost way too much money, and that's the biggest problem with this. It says, adding even further insult to injury, should these numbers hold, that would leave Lost Kingdom with a worse opening weekend box office than even the Marvels, which ended the period with a total gross of $47 million domestically and $63 million internationally. Unfortunately for the King of the Seven Seas, these are two very distinct reasons why this goal may realistically be unobtainable. This is a first, of course, current DC Studios co-head James Gunn's decision to announce his reboot of DC's cinematic roadmap over a year before the aquatic hero returned for his second adventure, as it essentially signaled to audiences that neither it nor any of the three yet to be released Snyderverse outings, Shazam, Fear the Gods, The Flash, and Blue Beetle, would have any relevance to the franchise's future. In light of this reveal, as well as Gunn's subsequent declaration that nothing is canon in his DC continuity until the animated creature Commandos, thus smothering any hopes of the Lost Kingdom being folded into his plans, it comes as no surprise that audiences have found themselves disinterested in the film's release, as outside of one's personal fandom for the character or particular actor, there's no reason for them to rush out and take it to the interconnected story elements. Now, that's precisely been my point since the beginning. The moment James Gunn announced that he is completely remaking the DCU, there was no reason for you to see any movies that were coming out afterwards. Zero. There's zero reason. You would not want to go out and run to go see Aquaman if you don't have to. None of this stuff is going to matter. None of this stuff is going to be considered canon. Everything is getting rebooted yet again, mind you. DC has been rebooted once before. Now it's being rebooted for a third time, and people are just fed up, man. So unless you are a hardcore DC fan, or unless you are a hardcore Jason Momoa fan, you're not going to go see this movie, and you're going to wait for it to come out in streaming, sorry. And by the time it comes out in streaming, it's going to be following after an abysmal box office run. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it, and if you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.